suspect, and although he did give a statement, it really wasn't anything helpful in terms of the investigation.
Do you have the case file number on hand?
I believe Mr. Ostrom has that.
55CR227482.
7282.
7482.
Thank you.
Do we have any results from the toxicology report?
From Ms. Arleth?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some controlled substances found in that, namely fentanyl. Unable to get a level because of the condition of the body, but the presence was detected.
And is that something that led to her death?
I don't want to say for sure because neither the BCA nor the medical examiner's office were able to confirm, but it certainly is probably a factor in this as we move forward, yeah.
Okay, and you said her family's been notified?
Yep, they were spoken to. The last time spoken to was yesterday afternoon to let them know that this would be coming out today.
I know you reached out to the public for help. Was there one specific thing that got you going down maybe a different trail? What was like the big break? Like, did we hear something from the public like, holy, we didn't even think of that?
I don't think there was one of those moments like we didn't even think of that, but from more than one person, and this is encouraging to me as a law enforcement, especially in society today, some of the people we talked to said, it just isn't right what happened to her. That should never happen to a human being, so we want to talk to you. Some of the information really wasn't valuable to the investigation, and some of it was. So as far as an aha moment, there were a couple minor ones in there, but it just kind of helped confirm what we were already thinking may have been what led to her death. So,
do we know the cause of her death? Whether or not you can say it?
Yeah, the medical examiner's office wasn't able to definitively say because of the condition of Tia, unfortunately. So,
Did the medical examiner's office determine how long Tia had been deceased by the time her body was found?
I don't remember the exact. I mean, they were able to get a rough estimate, but rough only because the condition of the body, but because it was covered it was covered by a tarp. And in the sun and the heat and the moisture, it really made it difficult to nail down a specific time. They can get it generally.
Do you have that general estimate?
I believe, I don't recall at the time. I know the last time the phone was active, but I don't remember her phone, I should say. But I don't remember what the ME's office exactly told us for that time frame.
Was Loftus involved in transporting her body?
That's the belief, and why that additional charge of interference with a dead body is on the criminal complaint today, yes.
Okay, is there an idea of where that tarp came from?
Our investigation did lead us to some pretty good ideas of where the evidence in this was from, so yes.
And he's the only one charged, or are there other suspects?
He's the only one charged at this time, unless with the press conference today, if someone has more information that they want to bring forward, we'd be happy to talk to anybody that still has more information on the case. But at this time, Mr. Loftus is the only one that is being charged.
Is it the belief of law enforcement that more people were involved?
We can't rule it out, but at this point there isn't enough for us to put charges on anyone else in this case.
Was there any evidence collected by the BCA that led to this arrest?
Well, they assisted us with collection of everything on the scene, so yeah, the BCA did help in not only the collection but processing to confirm some of our suspicions as we move forward in the case.
Any specific evidence?
There is, and like I said, I probably won't get into that today. I know the criminal complaint does probably answer some of the questions, and I believe Mr. Ostrom is going to post that online later today. So there will be a copy of that available for you folks, and maybe that can answer some more of your questions as well.
So he's been in custody since July 15th. What's been happening from the arrest that happened then to now?
Yep. So just the investigative process, we wish it moved faster like you see on TV and movies, and it doesn't. We have to not only follow up on every lead, and that includes confirming some things and making sure that we're not going down the wrong path. even if we don't think it was leading somewhere or someone that we didn't think had valuable information, we talked to them because we don't want to rule anything out, and that was the case here. So that and waiting for some of the forensic evidence to come back, as everyone knows, that takes a while too, and we're still waiting on a couple pieces of that. But at this point, it wasn't necessary to wait for it in order for us to file the charges today. So.
How does it feel from your perspective to get to this point, all the legwork that's gone into it?
I mean, it feels good for us to be doing it. We had a lot of investigators and a lot of time working on this case. And I think the biggest thing, and as you guys well know, during the course of this, the media was asking me, are there any updates on this case? And we wanted to be able to talk about it, but we couldn't because it was still active. And as much as it feels good for us today to be at this point, I believe for the family that's the most important, that there's finally some answer, someone to focus on and maybe get some answers from. So from our standpoint, it took a long time, but from the families, I'm sure it was a lot longer than what it seemed to us.
So would you say there's a sense of closure, but there could potentially be more to be done?
Yeah, there's still work to be done right up, including through trial if it goes to trial. So we never want to close the door on an investigation until that court decision is made or the verdict is read. So we're still open, and if there's anything out there, we intend to follow up on it.
Is there anything else about the suspect? Does he have a criminal history?
Yep, he has a criminal history. He's in custody right now on 2 different incidents. One that was on, I believe, June 23rd, and then the other one on July 15th.
What were those?
The one from June 23rd is a second-degree controlled substance charge, as well as a felon in possession of a firearm. And the one from July 15th, when we were looking for Mr. Loftus, he fled from us, and then there's a 5th-degree controlled substance charge, because when we finally were able to make the arrest after he fled, he had some controlled substances on him at that time.
Okay, so knowing that he had that past history,
Mhm.
that you have fentanyl in your system, do you believe drugs had something to be a piece of what all went on?
Yeah, I believe drugs are probably central to this. Whether the connection is all the way clear, drugs were definitely probably a pretty good big factor in what happened here. And in addition, he does have there was a Winona County hold that may have been cleared up at this point, but he has a Minnesota DOC hold too, because of the criminal activity that he's being held on now.
So you said that he was somewhere and then he left and there was a chase. Like, where was the initial arrest tried to be, and then where did you arrest him?
Both of them originated from his residence here in Rochester. When our deputy on the second one made contact with him, fully, full marked uniform, and announced he was under arrest, he fled on a bicycle at that point. So both the arrests originated as his residence here in town.
Wow.
So you said he gave a statement. What can you say? What was his reaction, or what was in his statement to you guys? Was there any transparency there?
I don't know if I want to get into the exact statement. He wasn't really forthcoming with anything in terms of the charges that we were talking to him about. And then once a suspect mentions an attorney, we have to stop our questioning, and that's kind of where it ended for us on this. We weren't able to ask follow-up questions.
Just anything that stuck out to you during the investigation?
I think I'll go back to what I said earlier. The fact, some of the people we had that came forward, and some people, quite honestly, involved in the criminal world, that said, "Look, I know I may not be the best person in the world, but I'm going to do what's right, and I want to talk to you guys, and if there's something that's of use to you, I want to talk." That's pretty big, and I think it's because our victim in this case was a young female. She had a lot of friends in the area, and I think that it speaks well. We always talk about maybe the path that we're going down in the world, but for people to step up like that is pretty encouraging to me, especially in the law enforcement profession, when they're willing to do that to try and get some questions answered, especially for Tia's family.
And I know I was able to speak to some of Tia's loved ones in the past, and one of the things that they reiterated was the fact that she was trying to get clean. It does sound like obviously she had really relapsed. From your perspective, how big of an issue are drugs within Olmsted County in our area, and the impact that they do have on the surrounding community.
Yeah, it seems, and I think the general consensus of it seems like we can tie most criminal activity in some way, shape or form back to the drug problems. It's not 100%, but it's definitely a factor in all of them. And it's not just Rochester, Olmsted, or Minnesota. It's nationwide. So the drug problem, of course, is a big factor in just about any crime that we have going on today.
And I'm sure heartbreaking too to know that she was trying to get on the right path and then things ended this way.
Right, and I think that may have, without knowing all of it, I think that may have been some of the reason why she did, move out of Rochester, because if you stay in the same area with the same circle of friends that you're with, it's hard to break that cycle. So moving away may have been part of her attempt to try and, continue down that path. And like you said, there's a relapse, but relapses happen sometimes several times until people are able to break the cycle. So unfortunately, this time she wasn't given that opportunity.
But at least to get to this point so that there is some justice, some closure for her and her family.
Yeah, and like I said, nothing will ever solve it completely, but to finally have some of those questions answered for them and they can finally have something to concentrate on, a charge has been filed, a future court date, and maybe some of that will come out in the court proceedings where they'll get some more answers. That'll help them with the closure piece.
Has there been anything in the investigation to indicate as to when he may have allegedly left her there in the field?
Yeah, we do have some pretty good timetables on that, some evidence to go along with it that helped us determine exactly probably when that happened. And again, that's some of the evidence that will either be in the criminal complaint or come out at trial, but we're pretty confident about the time when that did occur.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You gave huge kudos to the community for coming forward, these individuals. Was there that, not the aha moment, but was there that one witness like, whoa, he really put this thing together maybe for us? Was there that one or two witnesses?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say at least. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. It's fair to say at least one, and more than that. That some of the information they gave was really valuable to us, either to confirm what we already knew or to give us another area to look where it did lead to more evidence in the case to say this was a good person that we talked to. That was credible evidence that they gave, and yeah, so I'll give full credit to people that do that, especially in this case.
And it does sound like you're still asking for any information for those who still may not have come forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand the hesitancy of the public to give information. Some people are worried about labels, and some people, worried about maybe their personal safety, whatever the case is. And I'm not saying that in this case, but if that is, and someone still has information that could help us further the case along, we would definitely ask them to come forward and reach out to the sheriff's office with anything they may have.
There's just anything else you think is really important to add in this case?
Just these types of cases. I mean, I responded to the scene that night, as did many of my investigators. It was heartbreaking to see. I've been doing this job a long time, and nothing prepares you for that type of scene that we came upon that night. So it's most important for the family to get closure, but I think it also helps, some of the officers that are on scene too deal with some of that trauma that they're exposed to as a part of this. And we, family by far is more important, but to finally get to this point where we were able to file those charges this morning, that part felt good to do from a professional standpoint and for the family. So,
how much of a mental toll does it take on your officers when they're doing this kind of investigative work?
Well,
do they have to go through counseling, or when they see these visual things?
We all process that type of thing differently, and there's times where that night everyone on my team was out there doing the job and didn't really trip anybody up. There's always peer support available and stuff, and when we need it, we ask for it. But the toll it takes, like I said, we all process it differently, and you never know what our trigger might be, and you never know how it's going to affect you. You may have seen something similar in the course of your career, and then for some reason this time it hits you, so you never really know. But that's part of the job too, and we know that going into it. So between our training and our support systems, I think we're in a pretty good place to help each other out on that end.
Could we go over the charges? I know you guys probably can't go into too much detail as to the reasoning why, but go over the charges and tell us what you can about the reasoning as to why it's those specific charges.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, Mark, I'm going to let that one go to you.
I guess one of the things I want to clarify is that we are specifically charging Mr. Loftus with providing the narcotics, the controlled substances that led to Ms. Arleth's death. This is a very, very complex case. We work very closely with the Sheriff's Department. I got to commend the Sheriff's Department for the work they've done on this. And we've had a lot of conversations back and forth on what it will take, what do we need. They put the pieces together. But we believe that we can prove that Mr. Loftus provided the drugs, specifically probably fentanyl, that led to Ms. Arleth's death. So that is count one, third-degree murder. That's the substance of that count. The other charge is interference with the dead body, in that it appears from the investigation that Ms. Arleth probably died at Mr. Loftus's home, and at some point he moved the body, and that's the substance of the other charge.
So we keep talking about this horrible scene that everyone happened upon. Would that second charge then be kind of the moving of the body, and then also whatever states Arleth was in when we found her? Does that make sense?
What the investigation has revealed, and Captain Schuler alluded to it, that there is a timetable. We know when Ms. Arleth was last seen, and we know that it was about, 3 weeks later or so that her body was found. At some point in there, we know she passed away, and based on the condition of Ms. Arleth when she was found, there was a period of time where she had been deceased before she was discovered. I think the evidence will also show, and the probable cause establishes, that there was a period of time where the body was found on June 17th. There was a period of time before that when we know her body was not there. And so at some point he moved the body. That's the allegation.
Because on May 30th, I believe is the last time she was reported seen at least at the last press conference. So is that still correct?
Yes,
That's still
that's
correct.
Okay. And then June 17th she was found. But you think between that May 30th, she might have been killed that day, or you thinking the timeline it may have been a little bit later?
We don't know. We know that we can't say exactly what day she passed away. We do know that on May 30th that she was still alive. She was communicating with somebody. We know that on June 17th we found her in a badly decomposed state. Sometime in there she passed away, and she wasn't at that location, within a week or two prior to that. So, there's still lots of investigation to go. Again, if people in the community have information that would help us continue to put these pieces together, that'd be wonderful. We'd love to hear from them.
Could more charges come down, or are these?
I would never say never. It depends on the nature of the evidence and what we hear.
How difficult is it to investigate a case like this and to bring charges with?
Well, based on this one, we've been working with the Sheriff's Office since Ms. Arleth was discovered. And we've developed, and over the course of that, developed a theory. But then we needed the Sheriff's Office to continue their investigation to put some pieces together. Captain Schuler talked about some cell phone evidence. I think that's part of the information, finding out, where Ms. Arleth's phone was, if we could, and try and track that phone, tracking some other phones. That information doesn't come easily. So there's a lot of forensic evidence in this case. Some of it we've received back, some of it we're still waiting on. But it's a very complex case. In these types of cases, we often have to show almost that hand-to-hand transaction that led to her death. And it's hard. And we've had a lot of difficult conversations over this case about how it is, what we need to get there. And we think we've got it.
I apologize, this was mentioned before, but Loftus, has he been pretty forthcoming? You were saying he's only spoken a little bit about what happened.
We don't want to get into the substance of the statements he's made. I don't know that he was tremendously helpful in this case, but we have a lot of circumstantial evidence. We're confident in the charges.
Can you give us Sorry.
Go ahead.
Can you give us a sense of how often your office is able to charge and prosecute cases of, third-degree homicide where you're charging someone with providing narcotics?
It's probably one of the harder charges to bring and to prove, because again, we have to almost prove that literal hand-to-hand transaction. We probably charge 1 or 2 people a year with this. We know that a lot of people die from overdoses, and we know that for every overdose, there's a dealer, and somebody is responsible for that death. But to be able to prove that hand-to-hand transaction is very difficult. So, we have these conversations with law enforcement quite a lot. We understand their frustration. We understand the family's frustrations in these. But proof beyond a reasonable doubt is a pretty high standard.
You mentioned cell phone. You're able to track. Is there anything you can tell us that led up to the possible event that happened with these accusations? I mean, did you figure out where she was at? Where was she moving around town? Or?
I think we have witness statements that will give us information on where Ms. Arleth was up until this May 30th time period. The cell phone information was very helpful, relating especially to that second charge, in being able to track Mr. Loftus's cell phone to the area where the body was found. And so all of this, I mean, there's a whole lot of evidence that we got to put together. I mean, this is like a 1,000-piece puzzle. But all of that is very helpful in kind of putting the whole picture together. But his cell phone in particular, as indicated in the complaint, will say that he traveled into that direction where the body was found.
Is it too early to tell what sentencing may look like if this goes to trial?
The only thing I can tell you is the maximum sentence on a case like this is 25 years. Sentencing is very dependent on the nature of the conviction and the person's particular criminal history at that point. As Captain Schuler indicated, he does have some criminal history. I wouldn't venture to say, though, what presumptive sentence would be.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you guys very much for being here today. I appreciate it. And just so you're all aware, I'll email an electronic copy to that distribution list that goes out every morning, just so you have it if you want it. So that'll come